Hello, everybody. Bob Chick back for the voice of bodybuilding. Along with me, of course, Hall of Famer Sugar Shawn Ray. What's up, Sugar?
Right, man. Bodybuilding season's about to get hot once again. Lots
It
of
is heat.
questions, and we're going to have some answers.
It is heating up as Detroit is just around the corner, but we're going to get to that in our second segment. Our first segment, which is brought to you by, of course, Panada, the best equipment in the world, the Ferrari of gym equipment. My brother, you and I just a few weeks ago had a chance to display it and put it out there in full force out there in the battlefield, and it did not disappoint. People just love Panada equipment.
Yeah, the turnout at the FHA in Las Vegas was nothing short of amazing. It seemed like everybody wanted to try the gym equipment, and you were giving a tutorial the entire weekend.
Well, the biggest problem I see with Panada, if there can be one, is that people generally don't know how to use it. It's not the easiest equipment in terms of you just get on and it goes one way. I mean, it's you can very much apply it to your height, your size, and different areas of a certain body part. Meaning, like we have a three-way bicep curl, which is basically a preacher curl, but it's got three different positions. So you can hit your bicep from three different angles, but you have to know how to do that. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, if you're going to go to any gym, you don't want to just get underneath the bar these days. A lot of sophistication involved. But a lot of these machines, again, they're made for like uh, condensing the space. You got three exercises
yeah.
on one machine. I mean, Rudy's ahead of the game.
Well, and he's got a tricep piece, which I've got my eye on. I got one of those coming for me because I have the
Yeah, the
three-way
tricep
bicep
bicep.
in my home gym. He's got a tricep piece, which is basically the same thing but reverse engineered. But I have an idea, Sean, which I think is a good one, and I brought it up to my peoples in Italy. A QR code. You go up to the machine. You have no idea how to use this thing or whatever. There's a QR code. You hit your phone on that, and then
There's a
let's say
video.
I pop up on your shoulder, and I go, "Hey, Bob Chick, here's how to use this piece. If you're looking for big arms, and you put this to setting one, put this the seat to setting two. It's an idea, but you know what? It would actually give instruction on the spot of how to use the equipment.
Well, we're not that far off, man. With AI, I mean, we're headed in that direction. Even at the grocery store on the checkout, and these football games, these concerts, we're moving that direction where the kiosk will replace a person and the QR code will be the access because it goes to your telephone. So we're
Well,
headed there
well,
in
bro,
our
we could
lifetime.
create anything. I can envision a 6 foot tall, 240 pound Sean Ray giving
Ooh.
you instruction on a chest press or something like that. Wouldn't that be something, bro?
Well, that ship sailed in terms of the height factor, man. I got the short end of the stick.
Well, one thing you're never short on is opinion, my friend, whether people think you were
Yes,
entitled to one or not. And
same here.
we're going to start thing out with some breaking news. And it's not breaking for us because we've actually been talking about this for about 2 weeks. And last week we said, look for Derek to be in Pittsburgh. It makes every sense in the world. $100,000 on the line. He's already in shape, doing the business of bodybuilding. He has made it official in the meantime, and good for him. Big kudos for Derek to putting it on the line in Pittsburgh.
Well, let's be mindful that our defending reigning champion did the same thing, lost his title
Yeah.
in Ohio, and so turnabout's fair play. Derek's not as big as Samson, but he can maintain that condition. And there was a lot of distance, I believe, between him and third place at the Arnold Classic. I don't believe that Pittsburgh is going to have the depth of the Olympia. He's going to have to look over his shoulder at Fitzwater. And of course, Nick will be the X factor. But Fitzwater, if he's really doing the business a la Samson prior to winning the Olympia, he could upset the apple cart, so to speak. He could really give Derek some fits. Now, the worst case scenario, and as a champion, you don't ever want to entertain this, is that you lose. But Samson right now he's learning the hard way about what losing feels like after losing the Arnold. Now, the $120,000 second place prize money is a nice bedfellow. I mean, it's not hurting that bad because it's business at the end of the day.
Right. Right.
And getting second to a former Mr. Olympia is not a crime. But if Derek gets beat by Fitzwater, all bets are off come the Olympia in terms of what he can actually, whether he can repeat as champion at the Olympia. This could be a catastrophic mistake, or it could be one of the things that keeps him on the straight and narrow. Because, like anything else, Bob, if you have a date, a test, you're going to be focused. So we know now that Derek has committed to this show. He's been laser focused since the beginning of March when he won. Didn't need a break after March. Just stays on his horse. Doesn't
Right.
have to reinvent the wheel, keep his diet clean, and cruise into this show and get a nice paycheck. Because listen, being first in any of these shows are great. I was the first ever Ironman champion, Gaspari, the first ever Arnold Classic champion. I mean, there's something about being said for being the first. This is Jim Mannion's first big money payday, open bodybuilding, and that'll go down in history if Derek can add that to his resume. He's very fast, moving his resume in a direction that's very Phil Heath like, winning these competitions, and then he could take a nice little break through the summer.
Sure.
But he does leave the door open come October if he gets beat coming up in Pittsburgh. There's a
Well,
possibility.
first things first. Samson has decided to take a break. I think he's very wise for that. Like you said, Shawn, he did put it on the line in Ohio. He came up a little bit short. Again, no crime in that. He lost to a former and fellow Mr. Olympia in that. But good time to take a break for Samson. He can regroup. He's still got a title to defend on the Olympia stage. But let's get to the show at hand and the lineup and the potential favorites that have come out. So Derek, we know, is in for fact now, which I think is great. Again, good move. His show to win or lose. I don't see anybody beating him here, but he does have some competition. Martin Fitzwater first and foremost. Now, Martin made his way last year, put himself on the map, fourth place finish at the Olympia. Absolutely phenomenal physique. We've all talked about New York last year, whether he should or shouldn't have won. Water under the bridge at this point, Shawn. But the question to you is this: does Martin Fitzwater pose any real threat to Derek Lunsford?
He does. Derek was off at the Olympia last year and controversially could have traded places with Fitzwater and nobody would have complained. So it's not a slam dunk. It's not a done data. Um, I don't expect Derek to look like he did at the Arnold Classic come Pittsburgh. I just don't think he's going to have the gas in the tank, but he doesn't necessarily need it. A 95% look could be just enough to slide into that victory and put that $100,000 check in his pillows and eat, sleep, and train for the Olympia this summer. But Fitzwater, there's got to be something brewing in him that's reminding him that, like, I could be Ronnie Coleman, I could be Gunther Schlierkamp, I could be that X factor that really makes things uncomfortable for Derek. I don't think Fitzwater is thinking about trying to hold Nick Walker off. I think Fitzwater's probably thinking back to October when he almost had Derek slipping and on the ropes and could have potentially beaten him. And that would have been a big feather had Fitzwater got third at that Mr. Olympia and could have changed the trajectory of Derek going into that Arnold Classic right away. Derek has a lot at stake. This is not going to be a walk in the park for Derek. He is a structurally better bodybuilder from the sense that his back for his height is so much wider. Fitzwater playing the size game like Nick Walker had better be careful because nobody said he was too small at last year's Olympia. And if he comes in too big in Pittsburgh, Derek's going to have a field day with him.
Well, one point you bring up, which I think is a great one because people have selective memories and short memories at that. The Olympia wasn't that long ago, but there was a lot of people who did have Fitzwater ahead of Derek at the Olympia.
Yeah.
That's not a slight on Derek. It's just what we heard out in the marketplace, what we heard amongst the fan base, and of course, people that are comparing videos and pictures. You could have made a case for that. Now, that means that that's a little bit closer than people think. Your second point, which I think is a good one, is how much gas does Derek have in the tank? He went from the Olympia to the Arnold. That itself was a gamble, but obviously it paid off to be a very good bet with $500,000 in his pocket and a victory over the current reigning champ in Samson Dauda. So how much gas does he have, and how close was Martin? Now, Martin says, I'll take him at his word, he put on 20 pounds this year.
Yeah.
Great. We all know that the gross and the net on that. Okay, 20 pounds, everybody, does not mean he's going to be 20 pounds every year on stage. So, again, gross versus net. Maybe he nets 2 or 3 pounds. If that's the case, this could really be a great 1-2 battle amongst these two. To your point, Shawn, if it's 5 to 10 pounds, that could be a problem.
Yeah, and it opens the door for Nick Walker because Nick did beat Fitzwater in New
Yeah.
York, and Nick has been all hell bent on vengeance and trying to redeem himself, and he's cocksure that he can beat Fitzwater again because he did it a year ago. Fitzwater is the one that is really the X factor. We expect Nick to show up in shape because that's what he keeps telling us he's gonna do and shut you up and me once and for all. Look, it wasn't a fluke that Nick won New York. It wasn't a fluke that he's the Arnold Classic champion.
Right.
It was disappointing that his headspace kept him out of the Olympia. It was disappointing that his hamstring injury kept him out of the Olympia. So it raises a lot of questions. And then it was disappointing, in my opinion, to see the guy up at 309 pounds in the offseason, because that's not what I would have had for that athlete if he was my client. That being said, I think he is hell bent on trying to prove things to other people and not just himself, which is going to leave the door open for Fitzwater to sneak in and take him out, depriving him of the opportunity to qualify for the Olympia in Pittsburgh. And it leaves the door open for Derek to really expose Nick's shape and structure should Derek hold on to only 95% of his condition, because a 95% Derek Lunsford is better than 100% Nick Walker structurally.
Well, bottom line is the biggest news to come out this week, Derek confirming his presence in Pittsburgh. And the biggest disappointment, probably to Nick Walker, because now he's got his hands full. A little bit less sure. He's never beaten Derek, as far as I know. So it's going to be a little tougher. But it's not a three-man race. It's actually a four-man race, Shawn, because Good VITO is also in the show, and he is making some heads turn with the pictures that he put out this past week. He looks great. He's big. He's not put together the best in terms of, he's a little square, blocky. I know, God forbid, just a preemptive to all you Good VITO fans out there, okay? Take it easy, okay? He's not, how can I put this, Shawn, these days? He's not the most aesthetically pleasing. He's aesthetically challenged. Can we use that one? Is that good?
Yeah, I mean, that's accurate.
Okay, so let's just say that, because God forbid we would call somebody blocky or, square shaped, or use a letter that nobody likes. But so let's just say that, because Good VITO's a good guy, but he's also got a lot of muscle, and he paints a problem here because he can upset the apple cart narrative. If there's a dark horse pick, I don't think he can win, and I don't think he can beat Fitzwater. But can he beat Nick? Let's focus on Good VITO versus Nick. What do you see?
Well, Nick's left the door open because we just haven't seen him doing the business. It's been a long time. It'll be a year. Is Good VITO? Is he in Detroit?
Good VITO, I don't think is in Detroit, but he is in Brazil, which is coming up not this weekend, but next weekend.
If I'm not mistaken, is Derek scheduled to go to Brazil?
I believe Derek is scheduled for Brazil. I haven't actually heard any names entering Brazil other than Good VITO. I know Rafael Branda, who was the consummate there, his neck of the woods, just write him in on the ballot ticket, is already qualified. So he's not in the show either. So your guess is as good as mine as to who's in Brazil, because it could be one of those shows that somebody sneaks in there because there just isn't a lot of competition for whatever reason. But we do have Detroit. We're going to tackle Detroit in just a minute, because we wanted to take the news of Derek officially putting his hat in the circle here for this competition. So, but does VITO pose an actual threat to Nick, or is he still a little ways away from that?
Look, the guy's dangerous. So, I mean, Nick is going to be his own worst enemy. If he messes up, he leaves the door open. We've seen the door swing open for guys. We've seen guys come from nowhere. Rolly Winkler, I remember he just kind of came from nowhere, wins the Arnold Amateur, then he becomes the Arnold Classic champion. It can happen. This guy's got enough muscle. He's got enough size. No, he doesn't have the best hourglass shape, but neither does Nick. So those two kind of cancel themselves out. And, if you're going to ever try to make a name for yourself, Jim Manning has created the perfect platform for these guys to get noticed. And that's another reason why I decided on Mother's Day weekend that this is not a contest I want to sit at home and watch online. This is a contest I want to be there in person. I want to support it. I want to bear witness to it, because there's so many different storylines from first all the way to fourth. And then there's the unknown of what can happen from some guy coming in on the last hour. But what's lost on all of that is that we know what's going on in Pittsburgh, but it's the second weekend in May. But prior to that, we got this show in Detroit. It's not a bunch of A-listers, but we have this thing going on in Brazil that nobody knows about. We don't know what the prize money is. We don't know what we don't know three names of the competitors are, and yet it bears the name Arnold Classic. So it's kind of it's mysterious to me. I don't know if it's the structuring of the scheduling of the shows, but how do you have an Arnold Classic in Brazil? You don't know one name, and you don't know what the prize money is. And then you have Detroit that's got at least 12 athletes, but it sounds like it's maybe a two-man show. And this would have been a great show for somebody like Shawn Clarita to jump into.
Well, we're going to get into Detroit in just a moment, but I want to finish off this segment with something that could make for an interesting further storyline. If assuming Derek wins the show, Nick doesn't qualify. Okay, Martin's already qualified because he won a late show last year, so he's kind of in a no lose situation here. If I don't believe Derek would go to New York as much as it's probably tempting to, because let's just say he wins this show, he puts $100,000 in his pocket. Even though it's 6 days later, I'm not so sure Derek hangs on for that. Obviously, the money isn't what it is in Pittsburgh or the Arnold. I think he shuts it down after a victory. Now that brings us to New York. That show is stacked up, obviously, because Martin's already agreed that he's going there. Good VITO's going there. Nick obviously would have to go there. If he doesn't win one of these two shows, it really puts him into uncharted waters of where does he qualify? Does he qualify or anything thereof? So obviously it's way up in the air for now, but we have to see what goes on. But one thing's for sure, Shawn, Pittsburgh is really shaping up to be an exciting show.
Well, if I'm the promoter of the New York Pro, um, I'm promoting my show. So I'm talking to the reigning Arnold Classic winner as coming to my show as a guest poser. I don't need you
Yep,
to compete in my show. I just want
true.
my people on the East Coast that didn't go to the Arnold Classic to see what Mr. Olympia, an Arnold Classic champion, looks like in person guest posing. So that would take all the cards off the table. That's part of doing the business if I'm Derek. I want to meet my fans. I want my fans to see me. And I want to, do the business of performing so I could build my crowd base and get that stage experience. But I would look at it as part of my work. I would be calling the promoter in New York. Look, if I win this show in Pittsburgh, I'd love to be your featured guest poser in New York. I've done it many times. As a matter of fact, I guest posed at the English Grand Prix. Dorian Yates was the MC and I was the guest poser. And I watched Kevin Levrone win the prize money like a week or two after the Mr. Olympia. That's just smart business to me. Yeah, you shut it down. You won the show that you wanted to win, the Pittsburgh, but you don't go home and just start eating donuts. You might as well go and keep doing the business and please the fans and show off your whatever it is. If he's giving a ring or
Yeah,
what, I
yeah.
don't know what's Mannion giving a
Well,
ring for
well,
Pittsburgh.
Steve Weinberger, obviously the promoter of the New York Pro for many, many years. There's a ring. I believe that
That's
prize
for New
money's
York.
gone up. It could be north of 25,000. So
Yeah, but here's the thing: it's not about the money, Bob. At this stage, if Derek
for
wins
Derek,
Pittsburgh, yeah, Derek wins Pittsburgh. He's made history. He's got his 100,000. But you still got to eat. You still got bills to pay. You got a kid at home. Book yourself a guest appearance in New York, right?
well, hang
Um,
on, hang on. Let me back up. Should he just compete in New York? I mean,
no, no,
is
no,
that
no, no, no,
okay?
no, no.
Okay, just want to
Listen. His goal was to go do the Pittsburgh show and be the first winner.
correct.
There's no advantage to getting on New York stage as a competitor. There's no advantage except a little extra couple of bucks in your pocket. But part of a bodybuilder's livelihood is guest appearances. And so if you're not competing and you know that you're not because you want to pull back
Sure.
a little bit on the reins, you want to take your foot off the gas, you want to fill up a little bit and relax, go and perform for your fans and make a guest appearance and do it in such a way that you're not up there being judged. I want the lights at 3/4 full. Maybe I
Right.
come out like those. Most of those guys, they come out in the classic shorts and do a demonstration. You don't want to just be there signing autographs. Go up there and do a little more, get a little bit of gas money, get some food money, $5,000, whatever.
Sure.
But he's a Mr. Olympia. He's an Arnold Classic champion. Could potentially be Pittsburgh champion. As a promoter, I'd love to have you come guest perform at my show. As a matter of fact, I tried to do that when I had the Colorado Pro. When I brought Melvin Anthony on with a company I represented to be the guest
Yeah, yeah,
poser,
I remember that. Sure.
and Melvin decided on the 11th hour that the guys looked too good. He's like, I'm not guest posing, and I wanted him up there for his performance,
Yeah,
not his
of
physique.
course. Sure.
But he pretty much breached his contract, backed out, and I didn't get a guest poser. But Derek should do that. If I'm Derek, that's what I'm trying to broker that deal.
Well, I do think we'll see Derek in New York, but I'm with you. He'll have a different kind of suit on. That's probably a nice three-piece suit as he walks away, with $100,000 richer. But I do believe he'd probably be in New York for that appearance. So, with that, it brings us to our featured segment here, brought to you by our good friends at Mutant. Both of us sporting the Mutant shirts today, and we're going to go with the "What do you got?" segment here, Shawn. I got some ISO Surge vanilla, of course.
Yes, and I've got the one that says triple chocolate,
Of course
the
you do.
best whey
Like
protein powder.
like ebony and ivory, bro. We are. But so listen, get that ISO surge in there,
So,
everybody. It's a great product, and the best thing about Mutant products, and of course we are a little biased because we're on the team, is the taste. I
yes,
know they're good
absolutely.
products. Everybody's got good products. There's 1,000 products that are decent, okay, in terms of ingredients and such. But to me, the difference, honestly, Shawn, is taste. I've had some great stuff in years past from different companies I've been with, represented, or even just tried. But if it doesn't taste good, I don't care. It can have the secret ingredient in there. I got to be honest, bro. If it's got that weird little aftertaste, the rest of it's going to sit in my cabinet, turn into a brick, and I'm
Yeah.
throwing it away 3 years from now, which I've done routinely over the years.
Well, that's the thing. If it doesn't pass the taste and the smell test, I don't want it. I remember way back in the day, they used to have this stuff. You open it up and it's
And
like raw eggs, rotten
way
eggs, I
back.
should say.
You mean
Way
like
back, rotten eggs. I think it was. I don't want to name names. Some
WHEY? Way back?
yes, it's
Come
way
on, bro.
back. But yeah, that's the thing is that not only does it taste good, but it has everything that's on the label, and it mixes well with other things. I put bananas, I put peanut butter, I put strawberries. But again, if you can't get past the taste, you're not gonna last, and that's why I'm constantly getting mine. My orders refilled. I got a couple girls in the house too, and
Sure.
what's better than protein? Nothing. You got to have it,
Listen,
especially if you want these.
well, look at that.
See
If
that?
that don't sell
It was
a tub and
quick.
a half this week, I don't know what does, bro. But
It was
listen,
quick.
big hats off to Jim McMahon out there and his crew. Again, taste always number one in my book, and of course, it's a great product as well. But we're going to get ready to this Detroit Pro lineup, bro. So, first of all, congratulations to Fuad Abiad and his crew, second year of the Detroit Pro. I know last year was very light in terms of competitors and such, and it's difficult. Listen, it's tough to put a show out. He's kind of an island in that he's not close to the Arnold and he's not close to the May shows. So it's difficult because you've got to get bodybuilders that are willing to stay in shape, or they're going to make that their show, and then they have a difficult time either hanging on another 8 weeks to go to the next series of shows. That's a scheduling thing. We can get into that in another segment. But the lineup so far is interesting because you do have William Bonac, who seems to be the OG on the stage
Yeah.
as it would be, but he's the favorite in terms of his pedigree, what he brings to the table. Listen, he looked very good at the Arnold. He had some people ahead of him, of course, but he's still very formidable. But the second biggest name in the show is a guy that most people have never even heard of, and that's Sas Harati. Now,
Hmm.
you guys can look him up real quick, but I'm very familiar with him because he was out of the UK when I was over there doing the business of bodybuilding some years ago. But the last time anybody saw him was in 2018, and then he
Yeah.
just disappeared off the stage. Very good physique, very well put together, nothing outstanding, but no real weaknesses either. And he's making his comeback here, so I'll be very curious to see how he can hold up or what he brings to the table. Again, it's hard to do a review. We haven't seen the guy in 7 years.
Yeah, and there's very few people that make really good comebacks. When I think of a really good comeback, it takes me back to Juliette Bergman, who took like 5 years off and she came back and won the Miss
10
Olympia
years.
again. Yeah, they had like 10 years and
Yeah.
they had two weight classes. Linda Murray did a very successful comeback. Very well, nobody talks about the women so much. Um, Gary Stridham came out of retirement to do my show in
Yeah.
Colorado, but he could only bust like ninth place. Arnold, of course, he took the 5 years off, but the guy was 28 years old or something like that when he made his comeback. It'll be interesting to see what Father Time has done to this guy's physique. I know he's structurally sound, but it's tough to take that break, come back, and you're up there with the new guys. I looked at the list. I think we were talking earlier. One of the guys that might have an opportunity to shine and come up from the back of the pack from the Arnold is that Carlos Thomas. This
Yeah.
lineup looks good for him. He should be licking his chops because it doesn't have a lot of depth, and it looks like the playing field might be a little bit easier to get in the game and be noticed with those big sweeping quads, the tiny little waist. He's put together like a little Mack truck. That physique might be able to find its way up into the top three of this lineup.
Well, like you said, this is made to order. If Carlos is going to shine, this is kind of it. Like you were in shape at the Arnold. You've had obviously a lot more time to whittle that down even more. Um, and like I say, it's not a stacked lineup in any way, shape, or form. So is it Carlos's junior time? Again, it remains to be seen because again, we haven't seen him anywhere near 100%, but he does have the tools. Just to give you a little bit of background, Shawn, as I'm looking down, The last time that we saw Sauce on stage, okay, 2018 Cali, he took second place to Nathan Diasha. And again, Nathan, very formidable, a fellow Olympian a few times over. And Raphael was actually in third. 2017, the year before, he was sixth in the show that Sergio won, the New York Pro. So that's how far back that goes. That's a good 7 years ago. The Detroit Pro last year featured Martin Fitzwater, who won, good VITO, who was second, and a guy that I'm going to put in my list of don't count him out and don't be surprised if he could do anything, including win this show, is another guy that a lot of people haven't heard of named Ron Gordon. Ron Gordon is a mountain of muscle. This guy is put together. His arms, his chest. I mean, he's just got that thick, old school muscle. And like I said, he did take a third. He's got a very short resume, Shawn. Third last year at the Detroit Pro. Last time before that, only other appearance was in 2022 at the Indy Pro, where he took 11th. I believe that was his debut. For anybody that's out there, look him up. Look up Ron Gordon. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. If there's a true dark horse that could upset the apple cart and actually win the show, I think it's him.
Well, if I'm looking at that lineup, again, this is another reason why I recommended a year ago that Samson stay down in weight, train through the summer, stay within striking distance, don't balloon up from the Arnold Classic to the Olympia, which took him to the winner's circle. If Nick Walker had prescribed to that, Detroit would be on my list because he didn't anticipate Derek jumping into this Pittsburgh
No,
show where he
no.
could be denied. But if he kept the weight down, this is not that far off. And this lineup doesn't look so strong that maybe we don't rule that out, that maybe he is doing the business of sucking it up, going on a low carbohydrate diet, doing extra cardio, and says, you know what, I'm going to throw my hat into Detroit just as a security measure. If I'm Nick, this is me. I'm thinking, okay, Derek is here. It's going to get interesting, but shoot, I don't want to be dieting and training all year to be beaten by Mr. Olympia. Now I got to consider going to New York, and I got to deal with him either there or maybe I got to deal with getting past Fitzwater. I want the sure bet. So you know what? I'm going to go into Detroit. Screw it. The lineup looks good, looks favorable. I don't have to do anything crazy, but that's the advantage of training closer to your competition weight because you can
Bingo.
make those last minute decisions and not miss a beat. And if he's doing the business right now in his head and he's doing the math, if he's not doing Detroit, he's going to have to start thinking, do I go to Canada? Do I go to the California Pro? If I can't win in Pittsburgh and I can't win in New York, he's going to be competing somewhere in the month of June. And that's going to run into his Olympia plans. And next thing you know, he's going to run out of gas for the Olympia. So if I'm Nick Walker, I may be thinking Detroit's not looking that bad.
Well, you might have been thinking that, my friend, but like an old song from the 70s, too much, too little, and too late. I've seen update pictures and videos from Nick. He looks like he's on his way, but there's a big difference between next week and next month. And I don't think he's anywhere even close. I don't think he has that ability in it, but I hear what you're saying. This is part of the problem when you have an off season at your 300 something pounds.
Yeah.
You don't even have the ability to jump in anything. And you're right. This would have been a golden. Listen, let's call it the way it is. He goes in Detroit at 90%, and he's winning the show. Qualifies. Now you can do whatever you want to do. You're in the no lose. You got the qualification in your back pocket. Go for that 100 grand. But again, at least you got the qualification, and you can go from there. Where it gets hairy is, like you said, he's not going to be in Detroit. That ain't going to happen. He's going to go to Pittsburgh. More than likely, Derek, he's going to have a very hard time beating Derek. Let's just say he loses. Let's say he takes second. Now you got New York the week after. Derek, like you said, probably not going to New York. But again, you've got Fitzwater and you've got the rest of the crew going there. Let's just say he doesn't win that show and Fitzwater beats him. Not get, like we keep talking about. It's all about figuring out your blueprint here of the year. Okay, what's my best probability? What shows can I go in? What how does this work? And then, like you said, it's a hodgepodge of, okay, do I go overseas? Do I go to California? Do I get into June, July, August? Or do you shut it down and then re-prep up for like one of the last shows of the year on your way to the Olympia, and all your eggs are in one basket? So I agree with you. If he stayed leaner in the offseason, maybe Detroit would have been a possibility, but I'm not seeing that. Other names in there of note, James Hollingshead is in there, again, a perennial. I don't know if we've seen enough of James to put him in as a front runner, but um, I got to give Bonac credit. I mean, this guy can still pull out a victory and a first place paycheck in his 40s en route. I believe it's his last year. He's at least indicated as much. So maybe he's just doing the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar tour, and we'll see him Pittsburgh. We'll see him in New York. Go for it.
Well, we heard him say that last year was his last year. And then he went to Dubai and he got second. And that second place prize money was pretty good. You know, he lost to Beirut, but, you know, he was never going to beat Beirut. But William Bonac is still a bona fide champion bodybuilder. I remember him when he won the California way back when he was out here, the Golden State Pro. I think he's a two-time Arnold Classic winner, been in the Olympia numerous times. Who was that he tackled on the Olympia stage when they won? Was that
That was
was that
Samson.
Sam? Yeah, he came to tackle him. So he's still got the legs, right? His legs haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
But Detroit would have been a good one for William to jump into since he's going to stick around. I mean, why not? But
William is
he
in
may wind
Detroit.
up. Yeah, don't be surprised if it doesn't happen for him in Detroit that he doesn't wind up back in Dubai because he had good
Hmm.
success there. And if you get second place in Dubai, that prize money is no slap in the face. I know Beta Budai, he upped the ante. I think last year he gave away 350,000. Now the overall purse is 500,000. But there were some good paydays in Dubai, and it was hot as hell. Is that show coming up in June or July?
Well, whatever the hottest month of the year is, of
I think it's
course,
July.
that's when we're going to be there. But you're right. Botter did say he was doubling the prize money this year in the expo size. So that's a great opportunity for any pro to get your feet wet. I do want to ask you this, Shawn, because as I'm looking down listen, it's they have twice as many athletes as last year, which is good. The bad is that the rest of the guys you probably even never heard of, or they're certainly not front runners. Maybe some guys making their debut. So it's nice that you're getting some numbers, but you need the superstars. You want the names. The names are what sells the tickets and gives the interest to the show. But I can't help but think, I'm looking, they also have classic physique. Matt Grego is in there, who's going to be the odds-on favorite. I did not see Logan Franklin's name or any of those type of guys. But and Wesley Visser's in there. Now, here's my question to you. If I'm running Visser's camp, would this not be a great show for him to pull a Bumstead, go up about 10 pounds, fill that frame out? Because he's a big boy. Visser's is not a small dude. I mean, I've seen him in the offseason, and I've seen him as he's coming down to the Arnold. Whatever happened at the Arnold happened. He got bombed out, couldn't hang on to his title as he was a defending champ. But can he do a C-bum? If I'm Visser's, I'm going in the open because it's wide open, a much bigger paycheck, and then he would have his choice to go in to the open into the Olympia. I think he's dangerous if he's 10 pounds up.
Well, he would have had to think about that when he bombed at the Arnold Classic. I think he was sick. I think he said he was on the record as being sick that weekend.
Yeah,
But
but
nonetheless,
if you're coming from, you can come from too lean or I brought it down too much or I was ill or sick. He's always been a good, honorable guy. I don't believe he was making that up. You can bring it up. You can fill
yeah,
out. Again, just like Bumstead. This guy fills out. I think he's an instant contender for the Open.
he would have had to have made that decision, I think, at the Arnold Classic. I think it's maybe too late to try to make that decision now. I know it's just the idea of just changing trunks, but if he's going to go in the
Yeah,
Open,
right?
we want to see him. We want to see him bigger than what he is in Classic because he's so tall. He's a 6-footer. I would have loved to see him 10 pounds heavier and doing this, but he would have had to make that announcement last month.
Well, I think honestly he's got a little more latitude than that. Again, he's not like he's got to come down any to make the class. He actually has to go up. Again, same exact thing that Bumstead did going into his open show that he said he always wanted to do. And I don't even think he needs 10. If he can fill back out where he was and then put on 2 or 3 pounds of just being filled out, I don't know, man. He's got some pretty good poses and he towers over these guys.
Well, it affirmed that if he won, then he should go open, right? Because he's beating these other guys that are just strictly open bodybuilders. But you're right, he's in that unique space
Yeah,
where you change the trunks and he could be in either category. But it's all about the headspace.
yeah,
Because I know for a guy like Breon Ansley, he had very good success early on in the beginning of Classic Physique.
yeah.
But we saw Classic Physique evolve since the first 2 times he won that division. And he has a very hard time fitting in that category because he just looks like a bodybuilder. And now at the end of his career, he's deciding to go bodybuilding, but it might be too late.
I think there's only a few guys in my eyes that can make that jump to open. Urs is one of those guys. I know last year in New York, I was very heavily urging him on to possibly consider open because he's a big kid. He's got great lines. And he can put on that kind of muscle, and I think be very
Absolutely.
successful in the open. And I do think Vissers is another guy where he brings it down too much. And again, I don't have anything that tells me this by proof, but I do get the idea that he's having a hard time making that weight cap, which is why he brings it down just a little bit too much, and he loses a little bit too much muscle in some of his fullness,
Yeah.
which has not been a good thing for him the last two shows, the Olympia and of course the Arnold. So Wesley, if you're listening, you know I love you, brother. But listen, all you got to do is check that other box, bro. When you go to the show and bring your other trunks, and wouldn't that be a storyline, Shawn? How about Visters goes in, switches camps, and he comes out the winner?
Yeah, I think some of these guys are afraid of what happens next. Okay, so they win a pro bodybuilding show. Now they got to deal with Samson and the other bodybuilders, and they're just the headspace isn't there. But for me, business wise,
Yeah,
I'd be thinking, bring it on because these are 6 footers. I mean, Wesley's 6 foot. I mean, these guys are tall. Urs is 6 foot, but I don't know that they want to pack on that kind of mass because they know that if they should win, then what? Now they're labeled and branded an open bodybuilder, and they're going to have to stay that course. And it might, be a different story when they get to Olympia lineup, where they might just get, run over by some of the smaller guys.
true that. Well, with that, we're going to go on to our third segment, Shawn, brought to you by Celsius. Look at that, brother.
Yeah.
Brand, brand new flavor, my friend. This is Fruit Burst, and I tell you what, it's one of my favorites. Anytime you get fruit punch or any of that stuff, it's always a better flavor. It's interesting because I'm doing some research for some other projects I'm working on, but the flavors are so different between here and overseas and
Yeah.
South America. It's like down there they like the mangoes and the passion fruits and those type of things. In America, it's you talk about like chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. It is very much like fruit punch, some sort of raz, something or other. It's always that type of flavoring, and pretty much the basics. I mean, like those are the big sellers here. But you go south, you go anywhere else, and they got some wacky flavors out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think sometimes it has to do with the type of ingredients that certain countries allow and don't allow in. That's why the flavors change. Kind of like McDonald's. McDonald's in Germany is not the same as here, and
No,
it's definitely not the same as in Australia. They're
definitely
different.
some mystery meat going on there. Definitely not the same as ours. But
Hey,
Shawn,
real,
you might have
real,
had a Celsius in your hand as you were watching the premiere of Magazine Dreams this past week. That brings us to our Siskel and Ebert-esque portion of
yes.
the program. Um, so I am so mixed on a review of this movie for so many different reasons. Um, Number one, I got to put this out. A couple of years ago, this was slated to be released because of Jonathan Majors and his stuff going on at the time. It got put on the shelf, not to see the light of day until now. But I did have some talks with some people on that side, and there was an idea to bring it and feature it on Olympia weekend. Now,
Yeah.
we never got that far because the shit hit the fan with Jonathan and it kind of got shelved. But there was a very real possibility that Magazine Dreams is going to be your headliner at the Olympia, red carpet event, show the movie there, all that stuff. It never really dawned on me at that point that the movie was what it is, which is not exactly a glowing look on the sport of bodybuilding,
Yeah, I mean, it's Hollywood, right? So the
right?
thing is, as a bodybuilder, we get in this headspace that we're going to go watch ourselves be glorified, and it's going to have a feel good ending, and that we're going to have this Rocky style athlete be on display, showing the glory and the benefits of bodybuilding and weight training and protein powder and receiving the award. And I think I heard him mention in the movie NPC and IFBB Pro
Yeah.
League. I mean, was very deliberate with the bodybuilding posters in the room because when I watched the movie, I saw a little bit of myself in there because my room looked like his when I started as a teenager.
I
I had
was,
nothing but
I was wondering
bodybuilders
where
on
you
the
were
wall.
going with that. I see myself in there, but thank God it's just the posters on the wall.
Well, yeah, I mean, I saw myself, I saw you, I saw a lot of other savory and unsavory characters, and it does take you on a roller coaster ride of emotions because you're waiting for the other shoe to drop where you feel good about being a bodybuilder. Like what we do has meaning. Everything I have is a result of my bodybuilding. The type of person I am has been shaped on the people I've encountered in our industry because we're all a reflection of the company that we keep. I've
Sure.
known you since I was a teenager. I've heard so many negative things about you that you would have to display those negative things to me for me to believe them. So the things I hear about you are as numerous as the things you hear about me. But since we know each other, it's almost impenetrable when people come to me with BS and bad news about you because I know you. I know your character. It'd be very surprising if you took a hard left and killed somebody. I'd be like, then I'd be shocked.
Although we
But when
both
you're
know
watching
people
this,
like that in this industry. Yes.
yeah, we do. I mean, we know the Craig Tituses and the Bertle Foxes and the
Yeah.
Kelly Ryans. We've seen people make a huge, like, really? What the hell? And that movie takes you down that road where you're going, wait a minute. You know, they have this icon and this hero. This guy's got his role model, which would happen to be Mike O'Hearn, Brad in the movie, and and he's depicted as like the modern day Arnold Schwarzenegger to this individual. I had the same feeling about Bob Paris and Lee Labrada when I came on, and then then I started looking at other people like Mike Christian and Chris Dickerson, and I
Sure.
had my role models and my examples, and none of them are without flaw. Right? Everyone's flawed. Sometimes they say you're better off never meeting your idols. Well, in this movie, it takes you down that road where this guy might have been better off never meeting his idol. And
Right.
I'm not going to give away the storyline, but it did bring bodybuilding into focus because we're in a movie theater where you pay to go and watch it. What it doesn't set you up for is that it's a very dark Joker sling blade type movie. This is not a feel good movie. This is not a success story. This is a disturbed individual
Right.
who found bodybuilding as an outlet, and it didn't bring him to the yellow brick road. As a matter of fact, we know a lot of people that have gone down the wrong path than the good path. So now that we know it takes you down this dark, gloomy road, and this guy doesn't wind up with the national title, doesn't wind up becoming the training
Right.
partner of his idol. Um, I think that plot twist for me made it all the more real about how dark this sport can be, which is no different than wrestling, which is no different than football, which is no
Sure.
different than baseball and track and field. But we're still looking for that feel good, pumping iron type movie that just never has arrived. And that was where the disappointment was. This is not the movie if you want to go feel good about our sport.
That's for sure. Let me start at the top because I got issues with this movie, Shawn. I need some clarity from you. So first and foremost, I know it's a movie. Everybody, okay, we can get all past the obvious. Jonathan Majors, okay, I get he's an actor first and foremost. Unfortunately, the physique, it's just so not believable to me. The guy couldn't, obviously display a physique that would win a novice class anywhere. So it's hard to believe that he's at the upper echelon trying to get into the Olympia or whatever, that they were trying to portray. And again, I get he's an actor and all that stuff. I also couldn't figure out, maybe you can help me out on this one. I could not figure out through the film is is he supposed to, he speaks kind of simple and he is kind of simple, like in that Green Mile kind of way, like with the delivery and all. Is he supposed to be simple, or is that just the way he was portraying the character? Like, is he not, obviously he's got some problems, right? But is he supposed to be simple?
Yes, 100%. This is a guy, again, that you quickly, very quickly realize is troubled. This is the
Right.
guy that this is a guy that sounds like he's an isolationist, which a lot of bodybuilders are.
Yeah. True
I
that.
didn't see him. I didn't see him in the movie with any friends. Um, so he's isolated. He's doing things individually, the drugs and stuff on his own. It's not a group sport. He's doing stuff behind closed doors that people don't know about. The guy doesn't have parents. But apparently, both of his parents were dead. He's got an elderly person that he's caring for, so he's working to care
Right.
for him. His workplace is an environment where it's highly trafficked. It's in a grocery store. Socially awkward, doesn't really have any love interests. And he's thrown into this idea, the delusion that he can change maybe his economy through bodybuilding, which obviously encompasses drug use. But the delusion that he is going through is so real because I know 20 bodybuilders just like him that are so delusional about their body. What they see in a mirror is not what you necessarily want to see on a stage. But then this is where you and I get into the slippery slope because the NPC IFBB Pro League has provided a platform where nearly anyone that puts in any effort can get on the stage if they can afford to get on the stage. There's a
Sure.
platform for all of us, including the wheelchair division. Anyone can get on stage. We're welcoming to anybody. What we don't take into account is mental health. And so, therefore, we're letting in people, including the big fat black guy that was at the NPC Nationals, where I said,
Right.
You have to qualify for the nationals. Well, how the hell did this guy qualify?
Right?
Somehow or another, he qualified, and he got to get on stage with an audience. And we have the stage available for our masters all the way up to the age of 80 plus. I'm not sure I want to see Grandpa, an 80-year-old, on the stage trying to flex and pose his wrinkly skin, and he's old and all that. But sometimes the storyline is more intriguing than the finish line. And so we give them the platform, because you take that stage away. Some of these guys will wind up criminals, some of them wind up murderers, some of them wind up drug addicts, some of them wind up not knowing what to do. So you give them the stage, you give them the platform, and it gives them purpose. This guy had a purpose. He wanted to be like his idol Brad,
Right.
and nobody told him, I think it's a bad idea. Don't do it. You're going about it all wrong. And so it takes him down this very, very dark, dangerous road where we've seen over and over again Dave Jacobs, Ray McNeil's
Yeah.
girl Sally, Gordon Kimbrough, Berto Fox,
Yeah.
Kelly and Craig Ryan. We've seen them go down the road that this guy was headed down. Spoiler alert, he doesn't wind up all the way down that road, but we saw what it could lead to. And bodybuilding was the catalyst, a negative catalyst.
So, two things from my perspective. One, I was a little surprised actually that they actually mentioned the NPC and the IFBB names. I don't know legally how that works. If that says you got free range to it, I mean, these are entities out there, and it doesn't paint them in a very good light with the judging and the whole process that you see throughout the movie. I don't want to give away things, but it's very obvious that there's a lot of weird stuff going on there. So I don't know. Maybe that's something that the Federation would look into, because I was a little surprised they actually didn't use three different letters. But and the other thing is it's I can't get around the fact that it's so cliche, it's so stereotypical that I was just cringing as I'm watching. And again, you and I both know people like this. We've known them for years, right? But from the jug of water to the gay stuff, at the end, I was like, oh God, here we go, right? Let me just guess. To the roid rage, the steroid stuff, the thing. It was just so cliche. It's been done so many times, and like you said, I am waiting for that one piece, just one, that's got any positive spin at all onto it. And we can't even count Pumping Iron, bro, because Pumping Iron was a documentary. So it
Yeah.
doesn't go left or right. It just paints a picture of what was going on 1975. Here's what's happening. But an actual movie we have never seen in our lifetimes of anything of any value when it comes into bodybuilding or anything like it.
Yeah, but we've had enough storylines in our industry to warrant the big screen. We just haven't had the right producer come along, like Charles Gaines, that could
Right.
capture the superhero like Superman. They'll if you have a great physique, you might be cast in that type of a role, a superhero role, but you're not a bodybuilder in that role. When I watched our good buddy Mickey Rourke win the award for the
The
wrestler,
wrestler. Yeah.
it was a very good depiction of a million different
Yeah.
wrestlers. We know those guys, right? Um, I know Jonathan Major's character and can give a name. I can give several names to his character,
Right.
which is why I have to tip my hat to him, because he captured the essence of those individuals that are disturbed mentally. So yes, he was acting. Yes, he was meant to be slow. He was socially awkward. It looked to be a pseudo drug addict. It looked to be someone that had identity crisis. Body dysmorphia at its finest was on display. And I think they actually called me in the beginning of that, when they started doing it, to see what my level of interest was.
Sure.
Um, but I kind of knew what rabbit hole this was going to take us down, and it's the one that we don't want to see. We don't want
Right.
to see what we watch on that big screen, because you have to look at it with kind of one eye closed and kind of look, but I couldn't look away because he captured so many people that I know that actually carried out the act that he wanted to he fantasized about carrying out on that movie. So it captured me in that way. I was able to detach myself from the fan of bodybuilding. I want to see this ultimate ending where he actually wins the show and goes to the Olympia. We got to be mindful. This was only his first show he was preparing for. He actually had never competed. He never competed. And
Right.
so we couldn't even call him a bodybuilder. And then when
Yeah.
he got to the stage, it was such a fiasco that I know guys that would do exactly what he did, because they're so delusional about what they see in the mirror and who they are and what they think they're put on this earth to do, that I'm glad it came out. They actually showed me what some of the fanatics in our sport actually Dude, we got guys, Bob, that will come from the East Coast to the West Coast that sleep in their van so they can train at Gold's Gym, and they're valet parkers or they're bouncers at clubs, and
Yeah.
all they want to do is eat, sleep, and train. It's a delusion. They're
Yeah.
crazy. The Barbarian Brothers. They found a
Yeah.
way to monetize it, but if we look at their story, what they did, we would call them freaking nut cases. They're crazy. They found a
Oh
way to
yeah.
make it happen. This guy showed us there's a dark side to our sport. The producer of this movie captured everything that was wrong with our industry and our sport, but a lot of it was very true from where I sat. I've been in the game 40 years.
Well, unfortunately, the dark side always sells better. It's got more eyes. It's, listen, you and I have been friends forever. We both come from the same time frame. You competed with each other, against each other, all that jazz. But we also both had the same backgrounds. You were a big football star in your neck of the woods and various sports. I did the same on my end from whatever, football, baseball, boxing. I did it all. Um, so I wasn't coming from a position of the guy who was picked on, getting sand kicked
Yeah.
in your face. I'll show them. It wasn't. I was a successful athlete in almost every sport that I did, and chose bodybuilding because that's what I fell in love with. I know you was very much the same. So unfortunately, that doesn't make for a great movie. Like you say, a Rocky type of thing, or again overcoming the obstacles. But it's still just kind of it's aggravating to see it. That obviously this is what it has to be as a cliche central. I do have to defend Mike O'Hearn in this because I did see that he was getting. Listen, he's getting a lot of accolades out there, but I also saw where he was getting some grief out there, and grief being that almost like he's a sellout. And why would you even do this role? Portraying a body, pro bodybuilder in such a bad light. With all the stuff that goes on at the end there and the his choices. And I got to defend Mike in this. All right, listen, Mike isn't a pro bodybuilder, at least not in the IFBB sense that we will all know or recognize. He's an industry guy, and he's made a hell of a career out of. He's got more covers than anybody I know in the industry. Has made a great career out of it. Makes his living on it to this day. Is in better shape, obviously, at 50 something than almost anybody we know. But he's not a former Mr. Olympia. Okay, he's not Jay Cutler. He's not Ronnie Coleman. He's not pick a name, right? So he doesn't have any obligation to the federation, to the sport itself. He's an actor looking for another role. This is what was offered to him. I don't know. Don't even pretend to know how much money he got. Let's just say he made a good chunk of change on it, and he can put it in his portfolio. To him, he's just portraying a character. With this
Yeah.
character Brad, and Brad was this type of a guy and had this type of preferences and whatever. So I don't agree with the people out there giving Mike any grief that like he's some sort of sellout to the business and the sport because he was never in that position.
No, and actors act. I mean, listen, I've seen some of my favorite actors. I've seen play slave owners in slave movies. I've seen play KKK members. I've seen play killers, natural born killers, right?
Right. Hmm.
Um, so it's a role, right? So they have to assume that role. What was the guy, Ed Norton? Remember he was in that one movie, something
No, that
X?
was American History X. Yeah.
He's one of my favorite actors. But in that movie, he played it almost so real that I didn't like him for 5 minutes. But
Sure.
I wasn't moved to run to social media to put out
Right.
an attack on the guy, right? Like he played the role. Mike's an actor, Mike. But at the same time, while he's an actor, he was playing himself because he gets fan letters. He is idolized by a lot of people, and there are a lot of bodybuilders that hate on Mike because he gets publicity because he is good looking. Now, looks are open to the eye of the beholder. So is acting. It's open to interpretation. Mike was offered a role, played the hell out of that role. I would not be shocked if we don't hear Jonathan Majors up for an award in the same vernacular as Mickey Rourke was, because
Sure. Possible.
the role of the character was disturbing. It made you feel something. It was moving. There was some sympathy there. There was some anger there. I mean, I've never seen somebody play an angrier role than the role that Jonathan Majors was in. When he was angry, I was angry with him. I felt it, right? And when he was crying and sad,
Yeah.
I felt sad for him. So the movies are designed to take you places, right? And I remember Tom Hanks played a homosexual in was it Philadelphia? I think it was
Oh,
where he had
the
HIV.
Philadelphian weren't they cross dressers? And what was the sitcom that they did
Yeah,
for
that
years?
too. Yeah, cross dressers, and you had the one actor that was playing the female cross-dresser, Mork from Ork, what's his name? He passed away. Getting old.
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams. Yeah, I mean, so when these guys play these roles, don't listen. We're supposed to be there to get away from reality, right? And just kind of let our
Sure.
imagination go. When you walk out of the theater, the best thing an actor can hope for is that you're talking about the movie, right?
Right.
Talking about the movie. People will be talking about Mike O'Hearn, but that wasn't Mike O'Hearn in the movie. He was
Right.
playing a role, and people need to be reminded of that. I think with social media, we can come out and give our reviews so fast, but in the past, you come out of the movies, and all you can do is talk to the person that you went to see the movie with. But now you can run and tell everybody. I think it was a well acted movie. Is it one I would see twice? I don't think so. Is it one I want to be judged and lumped in as a bodybuilder? No, it captured one individual,
Right.
his struggle with his life and delusion of bodybuilding being some type of a vehicle, a way out, and had all the stereotypes you want. Now, isn't that the same as, for example, any racist KKK movie made in the South of Alabama?
Right.
Alabama's not that way. I've been to Alabama many times. I've been to Georgia, your backyard.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of stereotype. I didn't witness that. Now, does it exist? It does. Does this guy in this movie exist? Does Michael O'Hearn's character in that movie exist? You can bet they're real people. But they had to take their own interpretation of those people and put their own spin on it. And that's why I think people got moved, because it was so real. It was very real.
Well,
Congratulations to both of them. That movie was well acted. Even though I didn't
yeah.
like the storyline, those were great actors.
And let me just put a cap on that. The difference is, like we say, that it's Mike playing a character, but Mike owes nothing to the industry in terms of, again, the federation or being a IFBB pro. He was never an IFBB pro. He was never part of the federation. Again, he's been doing what he's been doing for a long time. That's much different than, let's say, if it was you or I
Yeah.
that were offered anything in this movie, right? Where you get the script and you go, I do have an obligation. I have routinely, as I lived in LA for 8 years plus and did all kinds of roles. Everybody knows the movies I was in and commercials and things. I've turned down, 5 times as many things because I didn't think it put bodybuilding in a very good light, or it was making fun of us, or there's a fine line there, right? And again, I felt an obligation for that, being an IFBB pro, being somebody who was part of that part of the industry. Mike is under no obligation, so I'm with you. Good for him. Good for Jonathan Majors. Let's see where it does. Unfortunately, the reviews are all over the place. Right now, it's actually getting ranked underneath that Cinderella that came out, or whatever that thing was. I'm sorry, Snow White. Thanks for the clarification. That's how much I know about these things, which is absolutely getting crushed at the box office for various reasons, and that's a whole other Siskel and Ebert episode. But like I said, Shawn, good for them, and unfortunately, neither one of us will be in Detroit next week to cover. But of course, we'll be glued to the phones and whatever coverage is coming out for Detroit. I can't
I
wait to
believe
see
you're
what
going to be
happens.
next week. You're going to be in Brazil.
Yeah, I will be actually, and I'll be en route actually to Brazil, as we've got a huge presence and a huge booth there under Panada and some various other companies that are there. So yeah,
I'll
I
be
can't.
I'll be headed to Switzerland.
Of course, getting a watch fixed. What are you doing
No,
out there?
I'm emceeing the Swiss Grand Prix for the 6th year in a row.
All right,
Working
all
with
right.
Kathy and Dagmar, they two female promoters out there for the NPC worldwide, and they're doing the business. I mean, this girl power out there in Switzerland. They got a great NPC worldwide regional show out there.
Well, as always, we welcome everybody's comments. Hit the like and subscribe and all that jazz everybody's got to say, for these various podcasts. But yes, that's me and Shawn out there giving you guys a hard time, giving it back as good as we get it. And as you can tell, everybody, we don't delete stuff, even the stupid comments, even the idiots that come out, okay? We all give you equal time. You're probably just going to get it back in spades. So, but listen, we welcome the good and the bad because it shows that you, once again, are listening to the voice of bodybuilding. For Sugar Shawn Ray, I'm Bob Chick, and we're out of here.